Anyway, technical difficulties aside, okay, yeah, let's make sure I record this, obviously.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, welcome, Ria. So obviously so happy to have you here. And why don't you just start telling a little bit, I know you're in Pennsylvania now, but why don't you just tell us about how you actually got started in real estate? I think your first deal was outside of Pennsylvania, right?
That is correct. Thank you, Martin, for the invitation to be on your podcast. So I'm a physician by profession, and I started way back in 2013. So when I bought my first property as my single family home residence, I had no intention of renting it out. But due to the call of duty, the call of being as a physician, we had to move to a different state. So I had no option but to rent it out. The market in 2013 was not great because we just had our 2008 market crash. I'm not sure if you remembered where all the properties back then were all tanking. And we did hire a CPA to review our the condo that we purchased as our single family residence. And at that point the CPA said, you know, why don't you sell it, because you're losing a lot of money. But in the back of my mind, from one of the books I read, is that you don't actually lose your money loss or your paper loss until you sell it. So at that point in time, I didn't want to sell it because it's only a paper loss. So I kept it as a rental. And when I moved to Pennsylvania for my work, I then decided to continue my journey as a real estate investor. So I purchased more and more. So that's why.
Oh, great. Yeah. That's the key, obviously. So why don't you talk a little bit? I think what was really interesting is you don't actually hear a lot of investors who are familiar with the construction aspect. That was actually something that really stood out to me about you. Probably, I don't know if there's a lot of physicians who even really have the confidence, I would say, to get kind of maybe entrenched in that aspect of the business. Why don't you talk about how you started building that confidence to get into the development side?
Sure. In the beginning, I didn't, build 2 units or 4 units right away. I put my feet in the water into the single family homes. So I bought probably 3 or 5 before I learned about the zoning of the community. And when I learned about the zoning, that I can put a 2-unit family in a single lot, it was making more economical sense, right? To buy an older property, demolish it, and put new ones in. So that's when I started doing a conversion, or taking down the single family home and converting 2 units or townhouses into 4 units. So number one was learning the code, learning the variance, and then working with a builder or contractor that you trust, because it's not easy to find great contractors. So doing single family homes gave me the confidence and the trust that I can work with this contractor.
Yeah. So I do want to piggyback on that. I am interested to know, did that open up a level of creativity when you knew that you could now start to transfer the UK? Do you feel that now, looking back, did that give you a higher level of creativity in putting deals together once you had the confidence that, I can move stuff around, I can change the actual building blocks here?
That is correct. Once I learned that I can do that, I bought this townhouse. They were side by side, and for a townhouse, it was very old. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. It's a duplex townhouse, right? And it didn't. So I bought it for like $200,000, and the rent was probably like $850. It's very outdated. It was built in the late or early 1900. It had a garage and 2 garages. But then it wouldn't make sense for me to keep it as an old one. So then after doing the numbers, I was able to convert it into 4 units. We took it down and built 4 new ones. I took out the garage because I had to abide by the current codes. So the current plumbing, firewall, electrical, and parking spaces. So I had to give up the garages that were on the property. And so I actually finished that before, last year when during the COVID, June of last year.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Before the prices went up.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Actually, it's funny because as you were saying that, I had a question come to me that I know one of my mentors would ask, which is, are there any parallels between being a physician, that skill set, and what you do as an investor?
So I think there is, right? Number one is hard work. So I do it all by myself, from finding tenants, from fixing things, to move in and move out. So currently I'm all one man team. I do have 1099 contractors. So as a physician, when you're in the ward by yourself, you take care of the patient, right? Everything is on you. If you cannot find a nurse, then you have to either, take the vital signs and or do certain things that you have to do by yourself.
Yeah.
So reliability by yourself when there's nobody there, right, is the number one important thing. And the next thing too is never giving up. So when you have a patient that's kind of depressed, you are still hopeful that you can turn things around. So in the apartment side, it's not all greens, it's not all sunshine, there's always downs. Right? So you always have to see that this is not the end all be all. So
right, yep.
There's a lot of
kind of
parallel.
A level of perspective, would you say?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. You know what I think would be interesting for our viewers is, you talked about, maybe we'll first tackle this whole element of finding a contractor, because the actual inception of this podcast, I don't know if I talked about this on our first conversation, or I guess second one, because obviously we met at our Rod's event, but this whole idea of finding, well, I'll go back to what I was saying, which is the inception of this podcast was really, who are the core team members who, once you have those and you've locked that in, you can have a level of confidence to then take the next steps. That was really the core concept of the podcast, really identifying those key roles, key team members that are going to help you get to the next level. And once that's out of the way, you can focus on what your strengths are as the entrepreneur and kind of get out of your own way. So my question is, when I was putting that together, those key roles, one of them was the general contractor. So the question is, how do you find a good contractor, and what's the criteria you use to find a good contractor?
So the builder that I have that built all of my townhouses, 2 units and 4 units, I didn't give him the big project right away. I found him actually in my backyard. So I always look around. There's diamonds in your backyard. I look around the contractors around my neighborhood, and I try to see their projects if I can go in the actual property. Number 2 is I invite them to look at my property, and I give them a small piece of work first. I don't give them a big job, and then I try them out. And then once I know that their price is reasonable and then they can do the job, then I give them a bigger responsibility. I just don't hand them, build me 2 units or 4 units. I try them out first on a simple project.
Yeah, so I think you'll see I think my video went out here, which is fine, because what I'll just do is in post-production, I'll just have to put it back together. But I think what we're going to have to do is I'm just going to restart the meeting. It's good, though. You did